girl who wanted
Kid can't even read.
to
Cut it out, dude. You're gonna get us in trouble.
Today, Junior?
It's needless to say that stuttering has a poor representation in popular media, and it's hard to find yourself concerned or confused. I mean, as something as basic as communication, the basis of human interaction, to become an obstacle for some people is peculiar. Stuttering seems out of place, especially when negative connotations are derived because of stuttering. In order to eliminate any misconceptions, we must first come to understand exactly what is stuttering and how can we help those who are afflicted by it. According to the Stuttering Foundation, a nonprofit organization that looks to maintain research of studying and development in coping methods and treatment, stuttering is a communication disorder in which speech is broken up by a series of interruptions in speech. You may have seen it in the classroom when someone is nervous presenting, but stuttering is much more serious than you may think. As Dr. Rachel Williams, an associate professor here at Nova Southeastern University's Department of Speech Pathology, describes how there are 3 different variations of stuttering.
And so they may have repetition, so words that are repeated or sounds that are repeated. They may have blocks where you actually see the person go to say something and then they stop the forward motion. Or they may also have prolongations, which is where they may stretch sounds out as they're actually going to say something.
To put this into perspective, speech is broken down by repetitions, which is basically repeating the same sound over and over and over again. Like how you would hear someone say, look like this. And then you would have prolongations, which are the expansion of sounds. So for this instance, you would have like this. And then you would have something called abnormal stoppages, which basically in between words, you would have no sound whatsoever. Stuttering can be attributed to genetics, childhood development, neurophysiology, and family dynamics.
So speech and language development carries a lot of different plannings, from motor speech planning, so that actual ability for the brain to connect to the mouth and getting it to actually function to form those words. And then also just learning language itself and vocabulary and how we use vocabulary across the board. So some children have more difficulty with the actual way they produce their sounds, as well as kids may have actually difficulties with language issues. And so those things go both ways.
For me, stuttering came in the form of child development. Like for example, when I was born, and throughout my early life, probably up to when I was 4 years old, I didn't speak. I wasn't able to formulate any sounds. My parents, being young and the factor of me being a firstborn child kind of, obviously made them worry. And they probably took me to every single pediatrician and doctor there was available in Broward County until they found a proper diagnosis. And from that point on, I would talk fast. I would speak before I would finish thinking a thought. And my parents often would tell me, slow down, think things through. And it was really challenging. Imagine you not saying anything for the first 4 years of your life. It's heavy stuff. Obviously, there are millions of people being affected by stuttering. More than 70 million people worldwide stutter, making a total of over 3 million people in the United States who stutter. Here's one famous example.
I was a stutterer when I was a kid. So, kids made fun of me and they laughed at me and they ridiculed me in a different kind of way. I felt like I was peculiar or unusual or whatever, until, I adjusted to it.
Speech pathology is the study of speech impediments, including stuttering. Even though it is definitely more accessible now than it was several years ago, the field of study is still relatively new to some practitioners.
So some of the challenges I think that occur with, I will start with kids because that's mostly who I work with right now. When going to see a doctor, a lot of pediatricians are not trained in communication disorders. And so when they see what we consider to be normal or typical disfluencies in children as they're going through that speech and language process, so that developmental process of learning how to communicate, they don't always recognize what we consider core moments of stuttering. So those core characteristics of stuttering, which means that the pediatrician may not recommend early treatment or early intervention for those kids who are actually going to end up being chronic individuals who stutter, which means basically they will stutter into adulthood as well.
In addition to all these problems in the medical field, problems arise in society as negative connotations directly impact people who are affected by stuttering. Stereotypes often include a lack of intelligence, association with emotional conflict, and a lack of communication and social skills. However, much of these misconceptions are just simply not the case. People who do stutter are just as well insightful, well-adjusted, and bright-minded people as anyone else. And if you ever feel like you're alone, or there's no real way to overcome stuttering, just know first and foremost that you're not alone, and there are millions of people who are working to overcome this, overcome stuttering. And if millions before you have been able to overcome it, you are more than capable of overcoming it. I find problems on my own trying to formulate sentences at times, and especially now when talking to you guys, I'm having a little bit of trouble putting together my thoughts into one coherent sentence. But it's only difficult when you make it difficult. And there are millions of different ways to help overcome your stuttering.
So some of the ways that a person can actually get therapy for being an individual who stutters, or the recovery process, so helping them to become more fluent as they develop in either at an early age as a child, would be speech therapy. So coming to a speech language pathologist and actually working on different strategies to help them increase their ability to maintain fluency of their speech when they're talking. So for young kids, we do a lot of modeling as a part of therapy. We actually teach them specific techniques. Adolescents and adults who may have been stuttering for a while, we also teach them different techniques and strategies that they can use to hopefully help them increase their fluency over time. And then one of the things that we like to do, and we actually do here as a part of our program now, is we do refer or recommend that individuals, once they get to an acceptable level of fluency, so or controlled fluency, they feel comfortable with their speech, would be generalization and maintenance. So participating in a support group is also very, very effective as well. So that way you're always continuing to share your experiences, but also being able to maintain your skills that you've learned.
So remember, stuttering on the surface may seem abnormal, and it definitely raises some misconceptions and concerns. However, underneath the surface are incredible people who are just as imaginative and goal-driven as anyone else. The beauty of communicating is that there's always room for improvement. With the gradual awareness of what stuttering is and eliminating the stereotypes, that's where we make progress.